Welcome to Nutrition 4. We will be discussing minerals and vitamins. So we're going to start off here with the 4 macro minerals. Macro minerals means that they're required in fairly high amounts in our rations, and we're going to use an example here of a dairy ration. The macro minerals make up actually 3 to 3.5% of the total ration. And one of the more important ones is calcium at almost 1% of the ration. I think we all know that calcium is necessary for bone growth. It's also necessary for normal blood clotting. It's necessary for muscle function. You need calcium cations for muscle contraction. As far as our production animals, calcium is high in milk, so lactating dairy cow needs a lot of calcium in the ration, and we add quite a bit of calcium to laying hens, their diet, because eggshells are basically calcium carbonate. Here's a lamb with rickets. Basically did not have enough calcium in the diet. Calcium deficiency and vitamin D deficiency can often look similar, because vitamin D is necessary for calcium absorption and utilization. Phosphorus is also needed for normal bone growth, so deficiency of phosphorus can manifest itself as rickets, but deficiency of calcium can also appear as depraved appetite, in that animals will be chewing on wood and other objects. Overall muscle weakness, low fertility, a lot of times is one of the first things you'll see in overall weak bones. Common salt, of course, is sodium chloride. So we have sodium chloride on the same slide here, and you'll notice that the functions are very similar between the two. Generally, as far as I know, we do add salt to pretty much all animals' rations. Salt is very important. We can also a lot of times add salt just free choice. So we'll put a salt block out for animals on pasture, and they can come by and lick the salt block and get their sodium and chloride requirements met. It's important to know the deficiency symbols for salt. So salt craving, you'll see animals drink urine, lick the ground. They'll chew on objects. If you go into a pen of cattle in which they're low on salt, they'll come by and lick you. Salt deficiency signs: decreased production, rough hair coat, severe death. Less severe, a lot of times you'll get decreased food intake. Magnesium is important, again, for muscle function. So animals will be overall relatively weak if you don't have enough magnesium in the diet. And more severe, you can have grass tetany. And grass tetany, you'll find that happening in the springtime when grass is growing really fast under cool conditions. The grass does not take up as much magnesium from the soil, so your heifers that are consuming the grass are not getting enough magnesium. The magnesium level in the blood goes down, and they get weak, and they'll lay down and die unless you come along with some magnesium. So we can give them a magnesium solution intravenously, and they'll immediately recover. But generally, if in the springtime you got animals on pasture, you should put some magnesium oxide out there, free choice, that the animals can consume. Potassium, another macro mineral, and 1% of a dairy cow's ration. Uh, and Generally, we feed a lot of legumes to dairy cows. That tends to be high in potassium. Corn silage also tends to be relatively high in potassium. But requirements may increase because of losses of sweating or diarrhea. So in really hot weather in the summertime, we might add additional potassium to an animal's ration. So the last macro mineral that we have on our list is a sulfur, maybe a little lower requirement than the other macro minerals. A deficiency is slow growth, decreased milk production. Ruminants especially, we want to make sure that we have enough sulfur in the diet because the microbes need sulfur to make microbial protein. And again, there's those 3 amino acids that do contain sulfur. We also, for poultry, will have some additional sulfur in the diet because feathers are high in sulfur, and also the gizzard lining, or the lining of the true stomach in poultry, is made up of a compound that's relatively high in sulfur. Well, now we're going to get into the micro minerals or trace minerals. They're going to be in the diet at only parts per million, so relatively a small amount. These micro minerals are important. There's deficiencies if we don't have enough of these minerals in the diet, but there's also a chance of toxicity if you have too much. So we have to be very careful when we start adding these micro minerals to the diet. So there's quite a list as far as this course goes, Introductory Animal Science. If the micro mineral is in orange, we're not going to be responsible for that micro mineral on the exam. So, but anything where the micro mineral is in yellow, you may have a question on that micro mineral for the exam. So chromium, number 1, just relatively recently we found that by adding a small amount, very small amount, of chromium to young pig diets, we can increase lean growth, and also adding a small amount of dairy cow's ration in early lactation, it stimulates appetite. Okay, cobalt, supplemented to ruminant diets and horse diets. The microbes need cobalt to produce or synthesize vitamin B12 in the fermentation process. So cobalt is actually one of the elements that's in B12. And yes, it also a deficiency. Basically, you don't get enough B12 produced and you get a decrease in appetite. Next on the list is copper, necessary for red blood formation. Also has antibiotic-like growth promoting ability in swine. So a deficiency will be look the same as the deficiency of iron, in that we'll have an animal that's anemic. As far as the antibiotic-like growth promoting ability, basically the copper works in the small intestine to as an anti-inflammatory to keep the small intestine healthier. Next on our list here, we have fluorine, needed for healthy bones and teeth. Most cities fluorinate the water so that it prevents cavities in humans. Too much fluorine can really mess up the bones and teeth. So again, some of these micro minerals can be toxic relatively easy. Iron's pretty safe. It's relatively difficult to have too much iron in the diet, but even then we have to be a little bit careful. Iron, of course, is necessary for hemoglobin synthesis. Okay, iodine. So we usually have iodized salt. Put iodine in a small amount. It keeps the thyroid gland healthy. Deficiency, pigs, lambs can be born hairless or woolless. Calves can as well. With iodine, it can be toxic if too much is added to the ration. And the symptoms of too much iodine are the same as deficiency. Animals can lose their hair. It also can interfere with the immune system if we have too much iodine. So again, be somewhat careful. Manganese is the last one, and generally in livestock we do not see problems with manganese deficiency, but it is the essential micromineral that we do need in the diet. Molybdenum, kind of cool name there, but most feedstuffs contain enough. It's hard to really find an example of a deficiency in this mineral. Nickel, most rations contain enough. We generally don't worry about it. Selenium is a micromineral that we do worry about. Soils around the United States can have surplus or can be deficient in selenium. And especially in Minnesota, a lot of our soils are deficient. Selenium works with vitamin E. It maintains muscle integrity. It's important for the immune system. Young animals born from mothers that are deficient in selenium may be extremely weak, and we call that white muscle disease. Now, so generally we do add selenium to the diet, but selenium is also toxic if you have just a little too much in the diet. So we have to be very careful when we're supplementing diets with selenium. In this particular slide, you can see that too much selenium can be toxic to lambs in just a small amount. If they get too much selenium, selenium is going to cause death relatively quickly. And here's a lamb that's very weak because of selenium deficiency. Well, here's a true life example where selenium was accidentally put in a mineral feeder, and the 25 ewes died just within a few hours. So again, we have to be careful with these microminerals. Silicon, most feeds have plenty. It's necessary, but we generally do not have to supplement with silicon. Here's the last three microminerals in this section. We'll talk about zinc. Zinc is very important for the immune system. Zinc is one where maybe we can have extra zinc in the diet without really worrying about toxicity too much. Many health food stores will sell supplemental zinc for humans. Again, it's supposed to help with the immune system. It's an enzyme activator. It's necessary for protein synthesis and for healthy feathers and hooves. A lot of times in diets for hooved animals will add additional zinc in their feet to stay healthier. And again, I want to emphasize with microminerals, they can be toxic in surplus amounts, so we need to be a little bit careful as far as adding microminerals in surplus amounts. I should say there's a lot of interactions between different minerals, but there's also interactions between minerals and vitamins. So As far as calcium and phosphorus utilization, we need adequate vitamin D in the ration. In order for ruminants to synthesize B12 in the rumen, you need additional cobalt in the diet. And vitamin E and selenium work side by side for healthy animals. Here's an example of catfishing. Well, now we're going to start talking about vitamins. We'll start out with the fat-soluble vitamins, vitamin A, D, E, and K. Vitamin A, extremely important vitamin. And if we have a deficiency, first thing we'll see is for vision. It's necessary for fetal eye development, so animals not getting enough vitamin A may give birth to young that are blind. Bone formation, immune system, anti-carcinogenic properties, and healthy skin, lungs, reproduction, digestive tracts. Vitamin A is extremely important. Now, vitamin A is relatively cheap, so we do tend to add vitamin A to most rations. Vitamin A in plants, well, you don't find vitamin A in plants, but you find beta-carotene, which is a precursor for vitamin A. So we can convert beta-carotene in our bodies to vitamin A. One important thing about vitamin A, it's not the most stable vitamin. So you're going to find vitamin A in large amounts in green leafy plants. You'll find vitamin A in orange pigmented plants like corn, but after it's been stored, and depending upon the quality of storage, after it's been stored for maybe 8-9 months, the vitamin A can lose its potency. So a lot of times we'll add additional vitamin A to rations in the late winter because we know the stored feedstuffs may be lower in vitamin A. Well, as we said, vitamin A extremely important for good vision, so we got to make sure this dog won't need glasses as it gets older. The other fat-soluble vitamins that we have here, vitamin D, it's cheap to supplement, so we usually add plenty of vitamin D to rations. And as far as human nutrition, most milk sold in this country is fortified with additional vitamin D. It works with calcium and phosphorus to give us strong bones. Vitamin D tends to be a very stable vitamin, so it doesn't lose potency over time. Sun-cured forages will have a lot of vitamin D. But like I say, it's cheap to supplement. A lot of times we'll add vitamin D. Vitamin E, very important vitamin antioxidant, keep feeds fresh. We can supplement our cows, extend the shelf life of meat and fat because meat and milk. And what it does, it prevents the oxidation of that fat, so the food will stay fresher. But maybe most important, vitamin D is very important for a good immune system. And lastly, we have vitamin K, which is necessary for normal blood clotting. Next, we'll move to the water-soluble vitamins, which includes the B vitamins and vitamin C. One thing you might notice right off the beginning is that these three first B vitamins all involved with the Krebs cycle and energy metabolism. Thiamine, also known as B1, deficiency causes beriberi in humans. Niacin is an important vitamin for livestock production, especially in lactating animals in early lactation. Helps to convert fat to glucose in the liver, which prevents ketosis, which is low blood glucose. So A lot of times in dairy cows, we may supplement with niacin in early lactation. So the B vitamins, what elements are they made up of? Basically your carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, and nitrogen. So we'll talk about a few of the vitamins here. B12, extremely important, found in only in animal products, so you will not find B12 in plants. But you do find it in animal products, and it's manufactured by bacteria. So rumen bacteria produce vitamin B12, and in any fermented products are generally going to have B12 in. As the bacteria produce it as we go through the fermentation process. Vitamin B12 is associated a lot with the appetite. If we have an animal that just doesn't feel like eating, a lot of times we'll give that animal an injection of vitamin B12. Choline, also known as the smart pill because it's associated with brain activity. But it also helps the liver convert fat into glucose just like niacin does. So in dairy cattle, for example, if we've got kind of fat, lazy cow at the time of where she's ready to have a calf, a lot of times we'll add choline to the diet to prevent metabolic problems later on. And last, as far as vitamin C, of course, we know it's important for humans. Also, guinea pigs and fish need vitamin C. But the rest of our food-producing animals, generally we do not add vitamin C. There's maybe a little bit of research that shows that adding vitamin C might enhance the immune system in calves, but there may or may not be that association. Just little diagrams as far as the chemical composition again in our B vitamins, and I guess kind of interesting here that B12 is an extremely complex molecule there. In vitamin C, maybe a simpler compound, I guess, and what we have here is a couple of guinea pigs, and the one on the right was fed a diet that was deficient in vitamin C. And that concludes our little video on minerals and vitamins.